Hello, hello. A little bit of a late stream. Hello. Oh, hey, hello, Mr. Half Said. Yeah, a little starting a little bit late. Got a little bit delayed by the late late lunch for me. So yeah. What do you call this? Krita brush stream. But how are you? Hopefully you're doing good. Starting here from the start, a nice. Accidentally left a little bit of this right here, but here, maybe I'll just write it as like a quick Krita brush video stream. Hopefully I sound okay. Let me know if everything sounds good or if everything is all right. But yeah, we'll start shortly. You know, since started a little bit late, don't mind kind of just kind of chatting it up with you guys a little bit before we start. Am early. How was lunch then? Lunch was good. Had some dim sum. Parents kind of went out and bought some, so yeah, it was pretty good. What else? I'm trying to think of what did I have? What was there? There was like a barbecue pork bun was there. Yeah, what else was there? I think it was like here, I'll just put this on the screen just so there's something on the screen while we chat. But yeah, had some dim sum, had some like dumplings I think was there. Well, what else did I have? You know what is weird? I can't remember. Oh, there was like this sweet potato kind of thing. I don't know what it's called. It's like a square shape. Kind of looks like this. It's not red, but it's like this square. It's usually cut out as a square, and then there's like bits of like barbecue pork in there. There's like radishes inside of it, and it's usually like pan fried a little bit, so it's a little crispy at the bottom. Oh, and then it had like an eggplant thing. So yeah, it was a good lunch. Just started a little bit late, so finished it a little bit late, and but yeah. Hopefully you guys are having a good weekend though. The weather is starting to get pretty warm. Actually, looking at the weather now, it's actually supposedly right now it's kind of cool, but the past few days have been like hot. But so it was like been 31 degrees, but apparently today is like 24, which is, I'll take that. That's kind of nice, not too bad. But yeah. So you know what? I guess we'll get started since we started a little bit late. Not gonna have the art challenge shout out just because I did not really have enough time to go look for some and gather them to showcase to you guys, but we'll do it next time. that will be a promise that I will include it in the next stream. But yeah, welcome everybody to the live stream. My name is Josh, and I'm one of the instructors here at Wing Canvas. Yeah, and if you guys ever want to learn some more or dive into our classes, you can definitely check our website out for class informations and kind of just check out the schedule and what we teach there. And if you want to follow along with what we do, we always post things on Discord and Instagram. Discord is kind of like one of the best places to get in touch with us. It's an ever-growing large community that we have there, and everybody is super nice. So definitely check us out on Discord and join the community. And as always, if you enjoy the stream, definitely like and subscribe. That's a great way to support us and also just stay up to date as to what we're doing. So as you can kind of see for today's stream, the topic for today is that we are going to be customizing Krita brushes, and we're going to be doing it together. I think I'm going to tackle it in 3 ways. So maybe I'll take this image off for now. But we're going to be doing, we're going to be doing it in 3 ways. One, I'm going to show you how I customize and change the settings on brushes. How I change settings on brushes. Not bushes, brushes. Brushes. In case you guys have never tried this out or didn't even know that you could do this on Krita, but there's a lot of settings that you actually can mess around with and experiment with to get the brush to be as close to what you actually want it to be. So I'm going to show you how I do that. The next one is we're going to try to make our own customized brush. Don't really have a plan as to what this brush will look like. If you guys have any suggestions on kind of picking a brush out for me, like changing certain settings, or if you'd be like, hey Josh, how about you tweak that one, let's have a brush that's like this, we can find those settings and let's see what kind of brush we make. It's kind of almost like baking, where you throw a bunch of ingredients in and you put it in the oven and you don't really know what the final result is going to be until you use it. So I think that's going to be kind of fun. So we're going to make our own customized brush. And then I think the last thing, because I think these 2 things are going to be pretty quick, we're going to use our brushes. Use the brush to use the brush for a drawing. So this is going to be kind of the plan for today, and maybe I'll also do a little bit of like a side commentary as well here, where it'll be kind of more like what I look for in a brush. Now, we also made a brush video not too long ago about Krita's default brushes and what are some of what I think are some really good ones to start off with and to try out. But this one, I think I'm going to comment more about like what I personally look for in a brush when I'm picking a brush. When I first started using Krita, how did I pick my brushes? What was I thinking of when I was trying to draw, and how that kind of curated the brushes that I use. So I think I'm going to also go over like what I look for, and also how like I guess the mindset when picking a brush. Picking a brush. So if you guys have any question about Krita's brush sets, or just in general just about brushes, let me know, because I do feel like brushes is a huge topic that a lot of people have when it comes to starting off with digital painting software. I think that's kind of like the biggest hurdle that I hear a lot from people, that they just don't know what brushes to pick, they don't know how to get started and all of that. So I feel like this is a very relevant topic that a lot of people have, on mind as to like how to get started. But yeah, we're gonna go through it. I'm just gonna rewrite this, and then also Mr. Hess said, I saw Michael movie today, well directed, but the movie doesn't really say much. It's more so an excuse to recreate the more iconic parts of his early career. Ah, yeah, I don't know. I haven't heard much about the Michael Jackson movie. I heard it was okay, but yeah, I don't know. I haven't had any interest in checking it out myself. Krita, brush, video, or not video. Brush, live stream, because this time I didn't type it out, so you know, let's just write it out. I feel like this is more appropriate since we're making brushes. Also, hello Cult of the Hermits, glad you're here, hope you're doing well. Krita brush live stream with yours truly, me, Josh. So yeah, this is kind of the plan. And like I said, if you're just joining us, welcome. I'm gonna be going through how I kind of create or adjust the settings to Krita's brushes, but I think I'm gonna go through a few things as to kind of how I go through that process. Let me actually, before I start, I think I want to actually maybe find a few drawings that I've done previously and put them here. So I think this is one, I think this is a pretty good one, or we'll put this in here. Oh, right. I already have it, actually. Give me a sec. I'll erase this little taro thing that I was talking about with the class. Let me see. What else do I have? Ooh, actually... Okay, this is actually one. I'm, like, pretty happy with how this one turned out. And as you can see, it's a huge drawing. So maybe let me delete this part. Because I think this is a big part of kind of showing you guys what goes on in my mind in a way when it comes to picking brushes and what I'm thinking about. Because I think depending on the style, depending on how I'm drawing, the approach might be a little bit different. So I kind of want to just see what are some things that I drew previously. Let me see, what is this? Creature design? Maybe. Or, oh, here, this one's a good one, actually. I'll get the K-pop, because I think this one's a little bit different as well. For how I did this one is a little bit different from the other ones. So let me just drop this in here. So some of these are from my class, and then this one is from actually a live stream that I did, I think last year near the end. At least that's kind of what it says on the calendar. But yeah, I thought I'd kind of bring these in just to kind of showcase the differences in art style between the three of them. And I think this kind of also applies to just in general how I go about picking brushes. So I'm gonna maybe just leave these up here while I talk about brushes and all that. Okay, also Mr. House says, I only went out of my way because it was for my brother's birthday and I promised clothing if I went as a side benefit. I was promised clothing. Oh, like you're gonna get a free clothes. That's cool. That's always a nice incentive. Are we gonna cover foliage brushes as well, like leaves, grass, plants, etc.? Oh, you know what? That's a good point. I guess we can kind of explore that a little bit as well. So maybe this is like a good way to break it down. Here, let me actually let's group these. Let's kind of minimize it a little bit. So maybe I can write and kind of go over a little bit of what I am thinking about or what I kind of usually am considering when I make brushes. Because then hopefully this gives you a little bit of an insight as to why I pick certain brushes and why I chose certain features or qualities or characteristics about a brush. So if you didn't watch the Krita tutorial or the Krita brush video that we made a while ago, I kind of say this near the beginning, but I'll kind of write it out over here. For me, in my opinion, brushes are usually broken up into roughly 2 categories, or like you can think about them in different categories. You have the drawing aspect, you have the painting aspect, and then you have textures. And then there's like maybe some other ones, things like things like patterns or stamp brushes, I think offer a different kind of, let's say, flavor or approach to brushes, but I think you can generally categorize it under these things here. And then I think after this, it can be broken down into 2 directions. You either have a more digital kind of approach and then a more traditional approach. And what I usually mean by this is, if you're never too sure as to like what brush it is that you're kind of looking for, I would kind of ask yourself, do you like a more traditional texture or do you like a more digital look to your drawings? And when I say a digital look, usually that is a more synthetic brush. The brushes are smoother. They maybe have a little bit of like an opacity effect to it maybe. So as an example, I'll show you right here. This is what I would consider a more digital brush. And the reason why is because the brush itself, the markings that you make, is pretty smooth. There's not really any texture to it. And not only that, but I can adjust the opacity that this brush has by how light or how hard I draw. So if I press really hard on my tablet, it gets really dark. And if I draw really lightly, then I can build up the darkness and the value or the intensity of that brush. So I feel like that's kind of the benefit of digital brushes. Digital brushes are a lot more kind of, they kind of get away with a lot of shortcuts, or you're allowed to kind of do these things that you would traditionally just never be able to do, like control the opacity of a paint stroke on the fly in the moment. And there's a lot of also like excuse me, there's a lot of also maybe like something like this where the brush kind of moves along with you. It stays the same size no matter how hard that you press on it, and that's not really something that you can really do on a traditional brush. Smudging brushes I would also consider as a kind of digital brush. So here is, I think, an example of a digital effect. This is like a wet smudging kind of a brush. Let me see if I have is it effects brush? No, it might be like a soft blend here. Like this, for example, is a way to softly blend everything in this very hazy, soft way. And that is a very, very specifically digital focused kind of an effect. So I would say, like, here, let me kind of break it up here. This is more digital. And then traditional is a little bit different. So obviously it's a little bit different. And I think I'll show it to you with like this charcoal grain brush over here. So you can kind of see if I lower the opacity to 50%, there's a little bit of an opacity effect, because if you think about it, charcoal does have that aspect. If you press really hard on a charcoal stick, it gets really, really dark. And then if you press harder and harder, it builds up the opacity, so you can do a little bit of like a shading effect. But if you look at it, it's very textural, it's very gritty, it's kind of grainy, there's a lot of noise to it. And I would also say that this gives it a more quote-unquote traditional feel and look to the renderings and to the overall look of your drawing. So neither is like better here or there, but I think the benefit is that this one feels just a little bit more grounded. It has a little bit more of that quote-unquote warmer traditional look to it. Traditional. Actually, I might go up and grab some water, but I'll answer your questions here. Are there any monthly art challenge submissions? Oh yeah, so if you missed it in the beginning, I kind of mentioned really quickly that had a little bit of a late lunch, so I wasn't able to grab any of the art challenges. But yes, feel free to submit art challenges. This month's art challenge, I believe, is called Digital Deep Dive. Let me just quickly check. Yeah, it's called Digital Deep Dive. There's already been a few submissions already. Unfortunately, I just have not had the time to go and grab some samples, but I can already see there's some really cool drawings. Chaos Chameleon, I see that you put some. Tricks, Froggy, I see there's some really cool stuff happening here already. So yeah, if you guys have not had a chance to check out what the art challenge is, and if you have any questions, feel free to ask the question in the thread, and I believe Gia or Jiaran will respond to it and answer your questions. But you're able to submit anything that you want as long as it's related to the topic and as long as it's kind of relatively appropriate, I would say. And yeah, we usually give a little bit of a shout out for it at the beginning of stream, but today unfortunately I just did not have enough time to fit it in, but we'll do that next week for sure, just because I missed out for today. And yeah, so yeah, just wanted to kind of bring this up because I think depending on which one you prefer, this can really cater the direction that you go in when you're adjusting the settings for your brush. So I'll kind of write it here. So like depending on what you look for, it can change, or it can direct how you set your brush. I think that might be a better way of putting it. It can direct you where you adjust the settings. And as always, if you want these notes afterwards, I'll be uploading these images and notes to the Discord after. So this is, again, another good incentive to check out our Discord so you can take a look at these notes. So I'll put it here. Ask yourself this kind of question. What's the purpose of this brush? Is it for drawing? Is it for painting? Is it for laying down textures? And then ask yourself, do you want a more digital look or do you want a more traditional look? And a digital, again, a quick summary, digital is a little bit smoother. It usually looks, it doesn't mean that digital can't have texture, by the way. Digital just means that, at least for me, my definition of it when I say digital brush is just that you're able to kind of get a certain look and feel out of the brush that you wouldn't really be able to do traditionally. Whereas a traditional brush is usually when you are creating a traditional feeling brush, or you're trying to cater towards a traditionally feeling kind of brush, you're trying to get it to replicate an actual charcoal stick, an actual like pencil, graphite, pen, maybe even like a felt tip pen, like any of those kind of things. And if it was like texture, you're trying to almost replicate the texture that a sponge might make, or if you're using a rake brush, or if you use any kind of like stamping texture to create noise, that's what you're really trying to replicate. You're trying to replicate how it feels to draw with a traditional brush. At least that's how I see it, because when I personally look for a traditional brush and when I'm trying to change the settings of my brush, I am usually trying to adjust it so that it feels almost like how it feels when I'm using a pencil crayon or a graphite pencil. So that's why I think this is like really important, because if you have the right expectations and if you go in with the right mindset, you'll be able to really either, one, find the brush closest to what you actually want, and two, you'll be able to kind of get a better idea as to like how to change those settings. So yeah, I'm gonna write that here so that you can kind of keep this in mind as a little bit of a reminder when you yourself are looking for brushes. So yeah, this is important in how you choose. In how you choose. Okay. And again, if anybody is just joining us, if you have any questions, let me know. Yeah. Do not understand why Canadians call colored pencil crayons. Like, they aren't crayons. Yeah, I don't know why, but we just all grew up calling it that way. So it's just pencil crayons for us. I mean, they are kind of like in a pencil, and you know, I never questioned it. That's just how it was always called, and it was passed down that way. Yeah. Hey, you know what? At least we don't call them crayons. Okay, apparently in America, you guys call crayons crayons, and I'm like, what happened to the Y and the O? Why is it just crayons? So I guess we each have our own little quirks when calling things, which I think is kind of funny. It makes us kind of unique in a way. But yeah, honestly, I don't know why too. It's a good question. I never questioned it. Okay, so I'm gonna show you an example of a brush that, or actually maybe I'll show you guys all the brushes that I use and why I picked them. I'm not gonna maybe go through all of them because I think that'll be maybe a little bit much, but I am gonna go through the brushes that I did pick, and I will also just kind of go through like why I picked them. Well, okay, obviously yes, crayons is just shorter, so it makes sense, but it's just like, but it doesn't sound right. Give me some crayons. I'm like, what's a crayon? Like cranberry? Yeah, and then I say crayon. Funny. Yeah, I know, right? A war. Give me a war, a ball. But then you say crayons. It's like, okay, you gotta pick and choose. It's fun. It is funny. But I also kind of I kind of like it. You know, gives us all a little bit of like these funny, unique cultural differences. That's fun to kind of learn about. For sure, yeah. Okay, so I'm gonna go through some of the brushes, not all of them. Most of the brushes that I have here on my favorites are brushes that I personally use a lot. Like, I have hand selected these except for the top row. So the first row that you see here actually are brushes, actually I think up to here. So from the big eraser, I don't know if, yeah, you guys should be able to see it. From the big eraser all the way down to this one here is actually automatically default selected by Krita. But I do have this brush here selected. It's the Pencil 6 Quick Shade. And by the way, if you didn't know, you can go and tag any of the brushes that you want. So you can right click a brush and you can go to add to tag or assign to tag, and you can choose which category you want to assign it to. And if you're like, oh wait, but none of these make any sense or it doesn't add to any of them, you can always make a new category. They call them tag in Krita. Oh, my avatar is kind of blocking it, but they call it they call it a tag, but basically it's like a category, or you can think of it as a folder that you can put it to. But yeah, personally, I really like textured brushes, so a little bit of, I guess, explanation of what I look for. I typically look for traditional brushes. I'm more of a line art artist, so when I'm looking for brushes, I'm looking for stuff that feels similar to like a pencil crayon or a pencil stick or even like a charcoal. Or even actually kind of like a sumi brush, actually. So if any of you have ever used those brush calligraphies and kind of drawn with that, I'm also kind of looking for that as well. Or when you get an ink nib and you run it across cold pressed watercolor paper, so the watercolor paper that's a little bit bumpy, when you have a nib ink brush or ink nib tip run through or run across the surface, like a rougher surface for watercolor, it creates these really unique scratchy kind of textures. So that's also kind of what I'm looking for as well, and you can see it in my personal drawings. It is a little bit kind of blurry right now. This is probably the cleanest approach that I have, but the brush that I picked for this, I believe, was this brush here. My charcoal pencil medium is the brush that I used to draw this one. And then for this one here of my lady, it's a little bit, my bad, a bit blurry, but this one I used the ball pen. So the ball pen, I used to draw this one, and it's like really cool because it's smooth if you press harder, and then it's really, really textured if you press lightly. So it's a really cool brush. I love it. And then this one, I think same thing. I drew the K-pop Demon Hunter ladies in my charcoal pencil medium. But I have a lot of other pieces that I've done personally that's not on this account right now, or this user account on my computer, where I've rendered it using the chalk grainy brush for rendering and painting. I've used like these brushes here to get a more painterly look for it as well. So you can kind of see how like the brushes can adjust and change how something can look. Here, actually, I'm not going to import it into Krita, but you can kind of see the texture. So this is an example where it's really, really clean, or I would say I try to make the line work as clean as I can make it, while also having a bit of this really subtle texture in kind of like the rendering and the fill of like these darker areas of like their outfits, for example. So it just has a little bit more of a traditional feel and look in the final finish. And so yeah, so I would say if you're like me and you're trying to look for a traditional brush, I highly recommend this one over here, and then also this brush over here, charcoal pencil medium. And then if you want something really grainy and big and chunky, then I also recommend chalk grainy. And if you're going for a more painterly look, I actually do really recommend bristles 2 flat. So painting wise, bristles 2 and chalk grainy are great for painting. And then if you're drawing, I highly recommend the charcoal pencil medium, charcoal pencil thin, or even if you want to try it out, the pencil 6 shade. That one's pretty cool too. It's a little bit chunky, but it's not a bad one to try out. And then, oh yeah, let's see here. What do you guys say? Okay, you guys are also talking about like the whole pronunciation. Syllables in bottled water, they're just not pronouncing them properly. The fondness for the weird pronunciations. Oh yeah, yeah. Same with aluminum, the proper pronunciation was originally the American, however, it was officially changed by the man who discovered it to match other metal. Oh, the aluminium or something. Yeah, I can't say it that way either, the aluminium. Funny. Like gritty art styles, I think having it too polished looks bad, too clean for my liking. Oh yeah, yeah, no, for sure. Here, actually, let me see if I can find one that I did from myself as well. Yeah, okay, here. These are also drawings that I did for the Krita brush video. So if you watch that video, these were the portraits that I used, and same thing, the line work, I try to have it very smooth, very clean, but then inside I just love that little bit of noise and texture that's in there. I think it adds a lot of life to the pieces. And then there's this one as well over here, similar style, similar approach to it, but you can kind of tell I leave things a little bit loose, I leave things a little bit like sketchy to keep it in. And then here, one last one. This is like typically how I draw. So you can kind of see I'm trying to really, really retain a lot of the noise and the grittiness in the drawing and in kind of the like the line work. So it adds a lot of like, I think it adds a lot of character and personality to the drawings. So if you're kind of curious as to like how I drew this one, it's basically the default brush. It's charcoal pencil medium, or you can try out charcoal pencil thin. Now this is I think a good segue to the first part of what I want to talk about. So if you guys missed it, I want to go into, well, we just went over like what are some things I look for and how to look for a brush when you're using like Krita. But now I'm gonna go into, oh, and then we also went into the mindset when picking up brushes. But now we're gonna go into what I do to adjust a brush to get it really close to what I actually want it to be. So I've been bringing up that I use charcoal pencil medium a lot, but you'll notice that there's 2 of them on my brush panel over here. You'll be like, wait, Josh, you have 2 charcoal pencil medium. Why do you have 2 versions? And you also have the same thing here. You have 2 of this pencil 6 quick shade. Why is that? Why do you have like two different brushes. And that's because the basic, like the default pencil medium thin, the charcoal one, was a little bit just too thick. So I'll kind of show you the difference between the two. Actually, maybe I'll make a new layer here. So this one is the default, and I'll even like maybe show it to you as I'm writing. You can probably kind of already see the difference. This is the default, oops, default charcoal pencil medium. And this is kind of how the brush looks. And you can kind of notice that it stays pretty uniform throughout, and its features is that it has like a little bit of a grainy texture to it. It's meant to replicate a little bit of like a very thin pencil charcoal or charcoal pencil. And so you can get really nice textury feathered effects if you press really lightly, and then you get also much darker and thicker and denser kind of a finish if you press harder. But it has a pretty good spaced out kind of texture throughout the whole thing for this brush. Now, when I first got Krita, I was looking for a brush exactly like this, and when I stumbled upon this brush, I was like, oh, perfect. I found exactly the brush that I'm looking for. It does everything that I want. But then as I was drawing with it, I noticed that I couldn't really quite get it to line or do any of like the detailing that I wanted to. And I noticed that I generally press pretty light when I'm drawing, but if I wanted a much darker or much more solid line, I would have had to really draw over and over and over and over and over again just to get it to be finally darker. So there are two things that I did not like about this brush. One, or maybe I'll write that here. So things I did not like, or I do not like. Maybe I'll just say do not like. So one, I didn't like the sizing of this brush. And two, I didn't like how the opacity effect of it. Let's just put it that way. I did not like the opacity effect of it. So I was like, okay, I need to change these two things. So finally, we're getting to the settings portion of this video or of this live stream. So if you go to edit brush settings, which is on the upper left corner, it should be there by default. And if you're like, wait, I don't see it, it's missing, try resetting your workspace. And you can always go to Windows at the top, and you can go to Workspace, and you can go to, I believe, Default. So if you click on Default, I'm not going to click it because it's going to rearrange everything for me. But if you click on Default, it will rearrange everything to the default kind of structure. So that's maybe one way if you don't find it, because it should be here by default anyway. So if you click this, boom, this window pops open, and you'll see that I have my charcoal pencil medium brush there. And maybe we'll go through a little bit of like all this stuff, because if you've never opened up the brush settings window before, and if you're brand new to Krita and you've just started using for a little bit, but now you're like, okay, I want to find a good brush, this is super, super important. I would highly recommend that you just get a little bit familiar with everything that's here and what some of these things do. You don't have to know everything, but just know like a few basic things. So the first one you're really going to want to get familiar with is the brush tip. This is kind of like the core foundation of how your brush essentially functions. So the first one is basically the size of your brush. This kind of determines the default starting size of your brush when you get it, when you click it. Right when Krita opens and you click on that brush, this is the default size. Oh, hello, Venomized Toothless. Glad you're able to join us. Here, and I can kind of go back to the brush preset, and if I click that, you see that it resets all of my settings. So the brush diameter by default is 12. Ratio, actually, you know what? I don't know what ratio is. I've never really played around too much with it. Maybe it has to do with the kind of just like the how much of the brush, like the paint comes out. Maybe it could be like flow. And if you've ever used what is it, Photoshop before, and you've played around with the brush settings on Photoshop, what you'll realize is that a lot of painting softwares share very, very similar functions and features, but they just all name them different things, which is really, really annoying, because then you'll be like, why is it just, why don't you guys just make it all the same? But yeah, they sometimes just name them different things. And then the fade, I think this is kind of like how much it kind of fuzzes out. For this brush itself, you can always play around with these, and this is kind of what I recommend. It's like there's so many different brush customizations out there. The best way to really try it out is to go like, okay, what happens if I do this with the brush? Does that change anything? Did that change the look and feel of the brush? Oh, and by the way, this right panel over here, this is how you can test out your brush. So if I lower horizontal, did that change anything? Not really. So I guess for this brush in particular, it doesn't really do too much. And then this is really for the brush painting part itself. So the angle is in kind of regards to like the angle of the brush tip. So it might be a little bit hard to see on my camera, or not on my camera, but on my screen. The shape of my tip brush is actually a little bit at an angle, so and it's angled in this direction. So my brush tip looks like this, and it's kind of at an angle, and you'll notice that that is the same angle as this one. So you can, if you have a certain shape, like if you're using a triangle or a square, and you want a certain shape the moment you put your brush down or your stylus down, you can adjust that angle with this over here. Let's see. I wonder if you hover, it kind of explain what things are. Huh, doesn't say it. Okay, well, I guess it is what it is. Randomness is kind of like the changes to the texture and the noise as you're drawing it. So if you really, really want a very, I guess, more traditional feel, you can play with randomness. But randomness can sometimes, depending on your brush, depending on the brush texture that you're using, it can use a little bit of memory. So if you've ever used Photoshop and you use like those sprinkle splatter brushes, and you notice that your computer really, really chugs while you're using the brush, and especially if you use it at a really large size, the reason is because the computer is rendering and figuring out like how it's distributing and putting down that texture. So just kind of keep that in mind, that sometimes changing these things may affect the processing of your computer, but it's sometimes nice to adjust this a little bit if you're using a more traditional kind of brush. And if you keep your brush relatively small and not too large, it's also totally fine too. So it's not a big deal. I might have made it sound kind of scary that if you change the randomness and you make it a lot and you make a really big brush, it's going to chug your computer and make it really slow. But that really, really only happens if you're drawing at a very large file size, and if you make your brush tip size just absolutely massive, and your computer has to render all the tiny details and noise at a very large scale. So that's kind of how you can play around with it. Density is kind of as the name implies, it has to do with the density of the texture itself, so kind of how clustered it is. So again, you can play around with it and see what happens. And here's the cool thing about Krita as well, is that it will show you in the moment what your changes did. So you'll notice that if I lower density way down, on the preview on the upper left window, it shows you what it would look like. So we can also try that out and be like, oh, okay, let me try drawing with it. How does it look? How does it feel? It's like, ooh, that doesn't look so hot. That doesn't look so good. So let's bring it up to like 50. It's like, oh, that kind of is nicer. It has a more grainy, sandier look to the texture. So you can play with that. And then let me see, spacing. Oh, spacing. This one's interesting. Here, let me see if, yeah. So if you didn't know, here's a really cool fact about brushes. It's actually all just dots. So if, for example, right here, this shows us what kind of icon or pencil tip our brush is. And basically, a brush is essentially just repeating this circle over and over and over and over again until it becomes like a very smooth kind of linear shape, like a brush stroke that we're familiar with seeing. So you can kind of see that if I increase the spacing, the dots gets more and more and more spaced out. And then if we draw it like that, look at that. We basically are kind of just drawing with dots. It's kind of cool. And then if I lower the amount of spacing to a point where it gets really, really dense, it becomes a normal brush stroke. And what's cool about it is that sometimes you can cheat a little bit of texture with the spacing. So if you make the spacing not too dense, but not too spaced out, but not too close, you can kind of cheat and make it feel almost as if you have a little bit of like these like little gaps in spacing that sometimes you'll see in traditional brushes. So that's kind of what you can change around here. And anti-alias is if you want your brush to be just like really, really like smooth. So if you click that, it'll kind of just smoothen all the edges for your brush. So if you don't want that pixely, jaggedy look, you can kind of click on this so it kind of cleans it up for you. And there, gives you even a little bit of a definition for you. Taking a short break from art because I'm trying to do so much stuff at once, trying to find my art style, trying out brushes with the gritty effect and more, so I'm just taking a break. Oh, well, you know, I think taking a break is always good. Lets your brain have a little bit of a reset, which I think is always needed. You know, sometimes we need to refill that artistic tank of ours as well. Yeah, just like Kaz King says, always good to take breaks. Yeah, for sure. Hand still hurts, and I'm trying to find a muscle doctor that takes my insurance. Oh, well, you know what? Hopefully you get someone who's able to take a look at it. Oh, well, also congrats on, or I don't know if you're just starting college, but hopefully you have fun. Let me see, what else? Oh yeah, so you can change the shape of this image as well. So if, I don't think you guys will be able to see it, but over here it's like a circular type shape, but if I change it to square, it does change it very, very subtly to a square shape. And this here is just like different kind of effects that you can have. Yeah, we can try it out. Let's see what happens if I do like softness. So soft, I feel like didn't really do too much with it. Let's kind of go back to default. Soft is, I don't know. To me, they kind of feel the same. So honestly, at the end of the day, for brushes, it's all about kind of like the feeling. But yeah, this is kind of like not the default. This is like the primary thing that you want to probably be exploring or playing around with when you're playing around with the settings of your brush. Then you have blending mode. This one's not really too big of a deal, especially if you're focusing on line art or line work. This one is basically the same thing as your layer effects, and it can kind of change the way your brush strokes kind of overlay on top of each other. So you could play around with this if you want. I typically do not. I usually just leave it at normal. And then these are the next kind of top things that we want to play around with. So if you remember, there were two things that I did not like about this default charcoal brush. It was sizing and opacity. And you'll notice that opacity is one of those things that shows up. So if you look at opacity, there's a lot of different kind of things here. What I would really kind of just emphasize is really just the pressure one. You can experiment and play around with any of these. But I would say like really the most important one to experiment with and try out is pressure. Now this graph here, I feel like every time people see it, they get a little bit intimidated because they're like, what am I looking at? I don't know. What is this graph? What does it mean? So I'm going to quickly draw out how a graph essentially works. Actually, let me see here. Transparent versus opaque. And then I think this is like pressure. So here. So this is pressure, meaning how hard you press on the brush. And then this is the opacity, So what it means is that if I have a pressure here and it's a flat line like this, this means that my brush's opacity will be at 50% the entire time. There will be no changes, no adjustments, nothing. And not only that, but my pressure does not change or affect that at all. So that's kind of what that means if you have a straight line. If you have it like this, it means that the harder I press my brush, the darker and higher of an opacity my brush will have. So if I press really, really light, the opacity will be at around like 10%. And if I press at a medium pressure, then it'll be at 50%. And if I press the hardest I can press on my screen tablet, it'll be at 100%. So this is essentially what this means. So if you combine both the flat line and the diagonal line, you get an S-curve, or you get a version of it is an S-curve. So what it means is that if I press really, really low, it kind of stays at a low opacity. And then when I press harder, it immediately jumps to a much darker opacity. And then if I press really, really hard, it kind of flattens out at a certain point. So it means that if I press really, really light, the opacity kind of sticks to, let's say, 10%. And then if I press at a medium amount, the opacity jumps to around like 50%. And then if I press really, really, really hard, it kind of levels out at around 90%, let's just say. So that is kind of what the S-curve does. It kind of controls how sensitive and how quick something jumps. So to show you another example of it, so this is P for pressure and then O for opacity. If I did this, what this means is that for majority of the time, if no matter how hard or how light I'm pressing it, most of the opacity is sitting around 10 to maybe like 30%. 10 to 30. And then the moment I press really, really hard, it has a sharp jump. So what this means practically is that when you're using a brush in this way, the transition is going to be very sudden. It's going to go really, really light, and then all of a sudden, boom, really dark. So it'll have this almost like sudden jump in like opacity, which is not really what you want because it kind of makes it feel irregular, makes it feel inconsistent. So you usually want to have either a kind of graph that's diagonal. Diagonal means it's very consistent, but the problem with the diagonal line is that it takes every change it's very sensitive to every single bit of change. So that's why most brush settings you'll find for things like opacity and even maybe brush size sensitivity follows an S-curve. And the reason why it follows an S-curve is that it allows for these jumps in values for like the opacity or the size, but it kind of lets you transition smoothly from one chunk to another and doesn't have these like really sudden jumps like this, and it's not too sensitive or consistent like this. So usually you'll find most kind of graphs to be in an S-curve. So that's kind of what it basically means. If you guys have any questions about that, I know that the graph part is like, ugh, graphs, oh my gosh, so boring, but it's really, really important, and I would highly encourage that if you are finding that your brush is not working the way that you want it, you'll want to play around with the graphing chart here. So with the opacity, for me, remember I was like, I do not like the opacity. So I wanted it to be darker from the get-go. I don't want it all the way at 0%. So for me, what I did is I raised the starting opacity to here. I kind of have it starting at around like maybe, so it says it's around like, oh, you can't even see, let me see what it says, 38%. So I'm telling Krita that I want my opacity to start at 40%, and kind of shows you here. And then as I press harder and harder, it kind of gradually changes, and then it levels out once I press my brush like this hard. So that's kind of how you adjust it, and I would highly encourage that you play around with it, test it out on the side, kind of draw and make lines as you would naturally, and see if you like that pressure change. So if you're like, oh, it's not dark enough, then increase it, make it higher, maybe make it even like way at the top, and try it out. And again, see how it changes your lines. And it's like, oh, you know, maybe this is a bit better. I kind of like this. So adjust as you go, but understand what this kind of basically means when you're using it. And then flow is just kind of how quickly the paint comes out, or how quickly the colors come out. I usually kind of keep it at default, or I make it very, like, I increase it quite a bit, I would say. But I usually don't really play too much around with it. Now, the next one that I did bring up was size. Now, size is a very, very, very subjective thing on like how you like it to increase as you're pressing onto your stylus for your pressure sensitivity. And you can kind of see that it's very, very gradual. Now, what I didn't like about the size was that it started off pretty chunky from the beginning, and it didn't like have a nice line weight increase to it. So what that means is I want this to be lower, and I want it to have a bit of an S-curve. So in order to make this an S-curve, all you have to do is click anywhere on the line, and you can add a new kind of anchor point to it. So I changed it to something like this, and you can kind of see on the side, on the left corner, how it's changing as I'm adjusting the settings. So again, I can play around with it, and it's like, ooh, you know, I like this a little bit more. Because like I said, I typically draw a lot thinner, and I really like to draw, I don't press super hard on my brushes, so I want to make sure that the brush that I'm starting off with, the size, is exactly what I want, and I want it to have a nice slow gradual taper. So I kind of will have it to be something like this. So to show you those settings, I'm going to click on this one. So that's why I have two brushes of charcoal pencil medium. I have the default one, and then I saved a duplicate where I took those settings. So you can kind of see here, the size is how I showed it here. The flow, you can kind of see I changed the flow a little bit, and I changed the strength of that flow. And then I also played around with the opacity. Oh, you can kind of see opacity, I actually had it just be like this curve over here. And with the brush tip, I had it start smaller for this one, and I also played a little bit with the spacing and the density as well. So yeah, that's kind of how I played around with this brush in particular to change the effects. So I'll write something here so you can kind of see how those things changed. Hello, Kofor. Glad you're able to join us. Just kind of explaining a little bit how the brushes work on Krita. So this is, I'm using right now my default kind of like the charcoal pencil medium thin that I have. This is my more customized version. So I'll show you how this one looks. So I'm gonna say my customized charcoal pencil. Now I call this charcoal pencil medium thin. I know, great naming convention. I named it thin just because this one I was able to get it to be thinner, so that's why I named it that way. But yeah, charcoal pencil medium thin, and this is kind of how the lines kind of look when I use them. Kind of a little bit of an example. So this one starts much darker, and also not too much of an opacity effect. So not too much of an opacity. So this is kind of how I change and adjust my brushes. So hopefully you can kind of see how like I adjusted it to get it closer to how I want it to be. So, you know, you might want a completely different change in settings for a brush like this. You might be like, oh, actually, Josh, the charcoal pencil medium is the perfect brush, and I would make some changes maybe, but I maybe wouldn't change it the way that you have it. And that's totally fine. That's kind of the point of brush settings, that everybody's just going to have something a little bit different. But you can kind of see that it's a little bit darker. It can get really, really thin, but it can also get really dark, but also maintains a bit of that texture to it. Whereas the other one here, this is the default one, you can see that it's a little bit faint. It's a little bit more airy. It's a little bit more like kind of lighter and all that. Oh, we haven't gotten to the like foliage, like grass. Well, this wasn't so much on addressing like the foliage thing, but this was more just like, this is how you adjust brush settings in general. But I think we can probably dive into customizing an actual brush now. But I think this is like really good. So I want to kind of clarify, or kind of maybe go over why this is really, really important and why this is really useful. Is because a lot of the times the default brushes that come with painting softwares are actually really, really good. Especially with Krita. I have to give it up for Krita. Krita uses, or has by default, some excellent brushes. The only thing is that you just might be like, it's almost there, but I want to change it a little bit. So what I always recommend for students and for people who are just starting off with Krita, to don't get too caught up on what the default brush is exactly. Like if you try it and you're like, oh man, this brush, it's like so close to how I exactly want it, but it's just missing a few things from it. Then go to the settings, make some changes, adjust some stuff. And in this demonstration here, I only used a few things. I only adjusted the brush tip a little bit. I like changed a bit of the spacing and the randomness to it. And all I did was change the opacity curve and change the flow curve and the size curve. And that was kind of it. You'll notice that nothing else here is checked off. So this is what if a box is checked off on Krita, it means that those settings are being used at the moment. These other things here, I have not played around with too much. And this is the part where we'll kind of get into it when we kind of go over how to make brushes. But you'll notice that there's some things here that are kind of they're kind of that have also settings to them. So yeah, I'm gonna take a quick break. Just gonna write this here. I'm gonna go get some water. Just gonna write quick break. There's a BRB. Oh wait, let me just say one more time before I go, or go for get some water. Yeah, so like a lot of times the default brushes are really good, and all you have to do is just change some settings. So what I encourage is for you guys to just play around with some of the brushes, experiment with some of them, and once you find one that kind of clicks with you roughly, then go and just change some of the settings to get it closer to how you actually want it to be. Yeah, because there's some really, really great brushes, and you don't have to buy brushes all the time. You don't have to kind of give up on a software just because you think it didn't come with the perfect brushes. A lot of times the brushes are there, it just maybe needs a few adjustments and tweaks here and there to get it closer. Yeah, so that's kind of why I went through this little bit here. That's why this right here is super, super important, because if you can answer this, it kind of sets you down a path or trajectory as to how you want to customize your brush and what kind of brush to look for. Because yeah, let's be honest, if I show you all of the brushes that are here on Krita, you're gonna be like, oh my gosh, that's so many brushes. Josh, you're asking me to try out all these brushes? Well, no. If you know that you're looking for a line brush that feels like a texture brush, that's traditional feeling, well, guess what? That kind of crosses out almost like 75% of the brushes here. You don't have to try out every brush. Just try the ones that look and kind of feel more like a traditional brush, and then just go from there. Okay, so I'm gonna go get some water, and I will be right back, and we'll test out and try to make a foliage brush, because I think that would be kind of cool. So I'll be back. Actually, I'll put that here. I'll be back. How's everybody's day going? Chaos Chameleon says day's going pretty good. It's good to hear. Oh my gosh, I don't know but if anybody keeps up with baseball, but right now the Toronto Blue Jays are going up against the Baltimore Orioles, and we're up 5-1. I have it on my phone so I can see the score updates, but don't worry, I'm not watching anything. Just looking at the score updates. Yeah, just about the feels. Gonna for sure do that to find a good brush for my sketches. Yeah, sometimes, I just kind of dedicate a day to just sit down and try out as much of the brushes as I can. Mr. Haas said, I'm tired, haven't been sleeping well recently. Oh no, well, hopefully you're able to find like a good rest. I've heard kiwis are good. I've tried I've tried it out. I think it kind of works. You can start off with like 2 kiwis and see if it helps, because apparently kiwis have natural melatonin in it. I don't know if this is true though. I didn't look it up, to be fair though. I saw it on a reel. Someone said like, oh, kiwis have melatonin in it and you can eat it before you sleep to help you like fall asleep. So I tried it. I think it works, but I think you have to like actually try to go to sleep after you eat it, and not like eat it and then like watch like a 2-hour long YouTube video and then go to bed. I think you have to eat it and then try to go to bed immediately for it to work. But yeah, I don't know. Try out kiwis. Ironically, I did that going through all the brushes, made a cool piece of it. Melatonin. I don't think what they mean is like, okay, well, I didn't know that, but I don't think what they mean is melatonin is like I think it's like it has something in the kiwi to help you sleep. Not that kiwis have melatonin in it. Then I guess that's what it means, but I don't know. Could be placebo as well. Never know. You can try it out either way. Sometimes placebo is the best medicine. But I guess placebo only works if you allow it to work. Then trying to see if it does anything. But I don't know. You know what? I'm gonna continue believing in the placebo, because you know what? Like, there's nothing wrong with eating. It doesn't hurt to eat a kiwi before you sleep. Unless you hate kiwis or you're allergic to kiwis, then I guess then you're a little bit out of luck. But I feel like, it's a win-win. Eat a kiwi, have the placebo work for you, fall asleep. It's like, wow, great. And then if you don't eat the kiwi and you can't fall asleep, then it's like, that sucks. Do you eat it raw with the fuzzy stuff? Nah, that's a little bit too much for me. No, I cut. Okay, I have 2 ways of eating kiwis, so we'll take a little bit of a quick break before we move on to the brushes. But what is it? I feel like there's 2 ways of doing it. You either cut it in half and then you scoop it out with a spoon. But I have this other way of eating kiwis where I peel it like a potato. I find that peeling it is much more satisfying to eat the kiwi than cutting it in half and scooping it out with a spoon. Scooping it out with a spoon is way easier, way faster, way more like convenient. But when you peel it and you eat the kiwi like as a whole, I don't know, it's way more satisfying to eat. But it's way more work to peel a kiwi, because the skin is kind of hard to get the blade, like the peeler, to cut across it. But yeah, it's that's how I eat kiwis sometimes. If I have the time, if I have the energy, I'll peel a kiwi. I think it's kind of satisfying. Okay, so we're gonna try out. Also, Mr. Hef said, let me know what the research is. I didn't bother doing the research. I just kind of went with it because I was like, you know what? I don't mind eating a kiwi before night, but you can shatter my illusions if it's not real. if kiwis don't actually help with sleeping, I guess you can tell me if it's true or not. I'll take the loss. Maybe I'll still eat kiwis before I sleep, but I don't know. You can tell me if it's true. Let me see what's next. Oh right, okay, brushes. So I think what I'm gonna do is, for texture brushes, I think it'll be kind of cool to actually show you guys how it looks. I think we'll treat this as a little bit of like an investigation kind of approach. So I'm going to choose like a few big brushes to kind of show you how the defaults do it. So in a way, it's kind of like reverse engineering. So instead of trying to figure out like, oh, how do I make a texture brush? Let's just see what a default texture brush actually looks like from Krita. So I have the chalk grainy brush. We can use that. Maybe we can use this one as well. I really love this brush. It's kind of like a fingerprint kind of brush. It's really cool. Or like a tire tread mark kind of brush. It's very like cool texture, fuzzy kind of texture to it, which I think is pretty neat. But we're gonna maybe start off with the chalk grainy. So let's open up chalk grainy and let's see what they're using. Okay, so here is what makes a stamp brush or a texture brush a texture brush. So maybe to kind of show you guys like, wait, where did this window come from? Like, why does this one look so different from the charcoal pencil medium brush? And the reason why is because the charcoal pencil, if I click on it, it actually jumps to auto. So if I go to auto, it kind of gives you the more kind of like standard, straightforward stuff. And you can kind of see this a lot if you go to the basic brush, the basic kind of like round brush. It's just like a basic circle, and that's all there is to it. And I think what they did as well is there's no brush tip to it. So if I go to the charcoal pencil brush tip, there's actually a default brush tip that's kind of there. Let me see, did they choose one? Doesn't seem like they chose one. Or at least they have the triangle, but that's kind of interesting. So looks like they have that pattern. They have this kind of pattern chosen for it to get that graininess to it. The strength, it's got 100%, and then they masked it. Seems like they used some kind of like linear dodge and texturing kind of, or like these settings look kind of similar. So this is kind of how I like to go about it, which is like reverse engineer, reverse kind of investigate how the program does it. So then this way we don't have to like kind of invent or make up the process for how to make a stamp brush or kind of like a texture brush. So Cult of the Hermits wanted a foliage brush, so let's kind of do that. So I'm gonna find, let's try a textury kind of foliage brush. I think that would be kind of cool. Pattern, there's no pattern to it selected, which makes sense. It's not checked off. So if you do want to activate a setting, you just have to check off the brush or check off this like the checkbox. And then if we go to brush tip, it's predefined. It looks like it's using this to get the texture right here. So you can kind of see how it's like implemented. So the lighter I press, that's kind of the shape and the texture that's being used. So let's change it up. So what is it? Cult of the Hermits wanted a foliage brush. So let's see. There's some foliage brushes here. Let's see what happens if I change it. Doesn't really change much. Huh. Let me see. If I make it bigger. Whoa. That's interesting. That is weird. Okay. Let's try this one here. Whoa. That is bizarre. Whoa. Here, let's try with like some painting stuff. Actually, let's investigate it a little bit further. So the brush tip, I made it this here. So if you go to predefined and you kind of just scroll through what is in here, you can find that Krita has already some default shapes that you can try out. You can kind of mess around with these as much as you want. I did make the brush size huge, so that's why it's very stamp-like when I use it. That's why I can kind of like print it in. But yeah, that's kind of how I got it to be like that. I kind of like this one though. This one was kind of cool. I feel like it kind of worked in a way. And I feel like if you can kind of use it to feather in some brushes and some bushes. And has no evidence linked. It does benefit your metabolic rate and lowers the risk of heart disease. You know, I'll take that. I'll just say that it is there to help me lower. It helps lower by, what is it? heart disease, lowers my heart rate. No, I'm just kidding. I mean, that's a very scientific way of looking at it, but you know what? I'll take it. I'll still eat a kiwi before I sleep, and I'll just kind of take it as is. But glad you did the research for me. Yeah, it probably doesn't do anything, but I think I'll still eat it because, you know, who doesn't like eating a kiwi before sleeping? Okay, so I like this brush size. I feel like it does the whole like foliage thing. Let's see, blending mode is normal. Size, I think size, I think maybe we will keep it the same. Like, I don't think I'm going to make it increase in size. Spacing, oh, that's interesting. Wait, what? It's reversed? Huh. That is neat. I wonder why. Oh, spacing. Oh, huh. The lighter I press it, the more spaced out it will be. Or the harder I press, the more spaced out they are. Interesting. I don't know if I see that necessarily, but that's interesting. We'll keep that in mind. Mirror. Huh. What does this do? Just mirrors it. Okay. Does not, I guess it doesn't, I'm not too sure what that does. Yeah, let's see. Strength, pressure. Okay. Interesting. I wonder why the brush tip looks like this, though. Oh, maybe because it's circular? No, I changed it back to circle. Auto spacing. Oh, you know what? If we increase the spacing, I can get it to be more foliage-like. I paint it in more like that. Predefined brush tip. Would you have to draw the initial stamp before doing something to make it into a stamp? Here, let's check it out. Stamp brushes. I think there's like a few stamp brushes, like this one here. Let's see what they did. Huh, interesting. I don't know if like this, I guess in a way it's kind of the stamp, like a stamp brush that's kind of created here. Let me see if I click this one. Huh. Kind of like goes back to it in a way. Precision is 1. Interesting. I wonder if that means it just like really increases it for you. Strength. Seems like the strength stuff is kind of kept and whatnot. Okay, so also I guess this is going to be kind of a cool thing. Let's try to make our own foliage brush. So I'm going to try this. I don't know how well this is going to work. Let's just give it a shot. Let's see how good it turns out. Okay, let's just use the, oh, right. Let's kind of bring it back to normal. Okay, let's say I want a foliage brush that looks like this. We're gonna make it we're gonna make it black. Maybe it encourages lower blood pressure, it can help, but that's about it on it, what it could cause it. Yeah, I think so. Actually, I think from the video that I watched, I think that's kind of what the guy reacting to it said. It's like, because someone was like, oh, you can eat kiwis to help you sleep. And the doctor, I think he mentioned that there are like qualities in there that does something to your heart rate to help with it. So maybe that could be why. Here, we'll draw like the Canadian maple leaf here or something. Here, and we'll have it a little bit like fuzzy in the middle, or like around the edges. Back to Pride Art. Yeah, I have to head out now, but this was insightful. Thanks, and hope everyone has a good day. Okay, bye. Chaos King, hopefully you have a good day too. So we're gonna save this. This might actually be a little bit too large, so we'll see. Save as, gonna save it as an image, and let's save it here. I'll call this maple leaf brush tip. We'll call it 01. Let's just see how it turns out. Oh wait, I need it to be, my bad. Gotta make it transparent. Okay, let's go do it again. PNG. We'll call it maple leaf brush tip 01. Okay. And let's see if it'll let me import it, because I might have made it a bit too big. So basically this is how you can make your own brush tip. So you just make a really, really dark kind of black kind of marking here, because the brush tip, you can always change the color of it. What you're trying to tell Krita though is like, this is the shape that I want for my brush tip. And then you just turn off the background, save it as a PNG, and you might have noticed that you can import. So I'm gonna try this out. I'm just gonna import, and let me see. Will it allow me? Where did it put it? Maple leaf. Let's see if we can find it. I don't know. Where's my maple leaf? I swear I saw something change, so. Let's see, where are you? Did it import it? I thought it imported it. Or maybe it's way too big. It's made too big and it won't like import it properly, maybe. Oh. That's so weird, I don't see it. Oh. Or maybe I'm just like, oh, here it is. Oh my gosh, it's right here. I found it. Let's try it out. Oh my goodness. Let's see how it looks. Oh, that's so cool. That's so interesting. Oh, that's so weird. That's kind of neat. It's kind of like a little spiky thing. So it seems like I actually have to make it bigger, maybe? I mean, it's kind of there when I put it in, so it technically, I guess, works to a certain extent. So there you go, Cult of the Hermits. I guess you could try this out. So basically, again, for anybody who maybe just joined or was like not too sure what was happening, Cult of the Hermits asked how I would maybe make a foliage kind of brush, and so I made a new file, and this is like super simple. I did this in like maybe 2 minutes. Made a new file. Let me see, how big was this file? It's like 12 by 7, I think. And I think the DPI was maybe like, or the resolution was at 200. So you can try increasing it if you want the resolution. And I basically made this really, really quick kind of maple leaf shape. I turned off the background so it's transparent. And then I saved it as a PNG. And then I went to the brush settings here. And make sure you go to brush tip. And then you go to predefined. And then basically I clicked on import, and then I selected the brush tip. So there we go, had a little brush tip there. And there we go, kind of used it. So, and then I kind of increased the size to just be like really, really big, just to see like how it would look or how it would turn out. And this is how it looks. So you can kind of even see the little bits of texture that's there from the file that I used, which is really, really cool. And you can kind of see that the brush tip is kind of there when I paint it, and it kind of retains some of the what is it, the noise from the chalk grainy, actually, which is kind of neat. So I don't know if this would be like the best way of painting a bush, but maybe it'd be kind of cool. So here, let me try painting a bush right now. Let's use some green. I don't know, Cult of the Hermits, if you're still here, but hopefully maybe this is kind of what you're looking for. So here, let's try out this new brush that I made with Krita on the side, and let's just paint. Yeah, thanks. Okay. So I didn't even have to make a brand new brush. So I kind of like the settings of the chalk grainy. So if anybody's kind of like, wait, what did you do, Josh? Can you show it again? I selected my chalk grainy brush, and I went to settings, and I basically kept pretty much all the same settings of the chalk grainy brush, but all I did was on a new file, I made this leaf image here. I think if I were to redo it, I would maybe make the file size a little bit larger. So what I did is, if you want to do that, by the way, like you're like, oh, I love the size of this, but I want to, or I like the shape of it, but I don't want to redo it again. So if you're like, oh, I just need to increase the resolution, you can always go to image, you can go to scale image to a new size, and you can up the amount of resolution that's over here. Some things maybe they might kind of like stretch or warp, so you have to kind of play it by ear, but let's try it out. Let's change it to like 400, and it'll take some time, but boom, it's at a higher resolution now. So then maybe when we export it, maybe it'll be a little bit different, maybe it'll be a little bit better, but we saved this brush tip basically. Then we went back to the working file here, went to chalk grainy, clicked on the brush settings icon here, kept pretty much all the settings on chalk grainy brush exactly the same, and we went to brush tip that's at the very top up here, go to predefined, and then went to import. And when you click on import, it gave me, I could find my maple brush leaf tip, or maple leaf brush tip. That's like right over here, and we imported it, and then I just had to look for it. It took a while to find it, but it was there, so it was all good. And yeah, basically there we go, got a brush tip. That's kind of it. So now we'll try it out. We'll try painting it. Oh right, one last thing, the reason why I want to recap that is because now we want to save the brush. Let's say I really love this new brush. I'm going to click this save new brush preset. Do not click overwrite brush preset, just click on save new brush preset, and you can name it something else. So we will call this maybe like maple leaf brush. Yeah, sure, chalk brush. Let me try this out. Chalk brush. Chalk brush. Can I keep it the same? I don't know. Can I load a different? Oh, I can. Oh, there we go. Oh, it looks a little weird, but that's okay. Whatever. Load scrap pad. Oh, that's so cool. I didn't know that. Okay. That's so weird. Okay. Here, let's paint a few like here, and then we'll go save as new brush. Here, we'll kind of name it maple leaf brush chalk brush. Maple leaf chalk brush. And we'll load and, oh, actually, no, we're not doing that. We'll just use load scratch pad thumbnail. So this is the scratch pad, by the way. On the right hand side, you can go there and, oh, sure, okay. I'm gonna click save. What? It's already used? Okay, fine. Maple leaf chalk brush. Maybe that's why Krita always has those like dash ones. So we'll call it dash one. I don't know. Maybe that'll. Oh, there we go. Saved it. Hey, wait. Let me see. Where did it put it? Or sure. Okay. So it's not gonna be here. So let's reset this to back to like the chalk brush. Let's see if I can find it. Oh, it's gonna take a while to find. Let me see if I can. Where is it going? Oh, here it is. I found it. Oh my gosh. Okay, let's assign to my favorite. It's gonna be my new favorite bush kind of bush brush. Gonna use this knowledge to make a brush in the shape of Walter White's face. No, that's awesome. I like that. Yeah, we can honestly, you can do anything you want, because you could be like, you can make a smiley face as your brush tip. You can make like Godzilla as your brush tip. I don't know. Whatever you want, I guess. So yeah, let's kind of just paint this in. You can make it a little bit smaller maybe and try it out. And maybe we can even play around with the opacity. Just kind of like, oh, nice. Just kind of quickly put it in. Now, here's the thing about brush tip or brushes that have some kind of identifiable shape to it, what I would recommend is to not rely on it too much. So if you rely on it too much, it's very obvious sometimes that the brush or whatever it is that you're painting is using some kind of stamp image or identifiable image. So that's why if you're using like a foliage brush or a cloud brush, use it to maybe get you started and maybe get the image there, but I would highly recommend to not rely on it too much. Go back in maybe with another brush to add some more renderings to it, maybe add more noise or texture or just anything to make it look or break away from it just being like a stamp brush. So I'm gonna try it here. So let's paint like a very quick like bush, like hedge bush here. I'm just gonna block it in. Into fitness gram pacer test? Wait, what is that? Pacer gram. Yeah, here it is. Got a little hedge bush here. I think it was pretty good. There's like some interesting like noise in here, but there's a lot of like interesting kind of like shapes there. So I maybe would do something like this, but then you can clearly see all of the noise and kind of like the shape of the leaf that I had. And it's like, okay, I don't really want that, so I'm actually going to go back to my chalk grainy brush and kind of lower the opacity and fill in those areas. And maybe let's just change up the color too. Let's make it a little bit darker, maybe a little bit desaturated, and let's just like paint these areas back in so that it kind of covers up and masks those foliage shapes. So that's kind of what I recommend. I know that this is not necessarily a foliage live stream, but what I highly recommend is to kind of use the stamp brush or any kind of like shape brush to, especially if you're using it to paint environments, use it to get you started. So like cloud brushes, mountain brushes, grass brushes, use it to get you started, but don't overly rely on it. So I'm gonna make it like this, and then I'm gonna go in with that's why I'm going in with the chalk brush afterwards to paint in this extra bit of noise. Looks a bit smoother now. That's cool. Yeah, exactly. So it kind of masks some of those obvious elements to it. And yeah, we're just gonna put some shapes and noises back into it. By the way, we can go back to the original stamp brush. We could go in and add some more noise. And that's kind of what nature painting is as well, is that it's just adding little bits of noises here and there and making it feel more kind of natural. Try to draw something that would not match to the brush just to see how it would look like a person out of the bush brush. Yeah, we could do that. Yeah, I think that would be kind of cool. The fitness gram pacer test is a multi-stage aerobic test wherein participants will run across a room. Oh, okay. Is that kind of like the beep test? Like in the gym? Was that the same thing? I like that it's leaving little bits of gaps too, actually. So oh, I wonder if this is here, let me try it out. So spacing is auto, blend tip, flow. Oh, what if I turn this off? No mirroring. Ah, okay, so there we go. Okay, so mirroring apparently is it kind of going back and forth. That's why there's like, okay. So if I do, you'll notice that my brush tip, as I'm like drawing it, you'll notice that I don't know if you guys can see it. The brush tip kind of goes up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down. And I was like, I wonder why. Like, what makes it do that? So that is the mirror kind of function. So if you're kind of curious what a function does, you can always turn it on and off, like just like what I did. So I basically unchecked the mirror option over here, and I tested it out, and I noticed that the leaves now all stay the same. They're in the exact same angle. And if I want to upright it, so right now if I draw, my leaves are all pointing to the leaf tip. If you see it, you'll notice that it's pointing to the right. So I'm just gonna adjust the angle, and there we go. My leaf now points upright. So that's kind of how I can change it back to kind of the way I want it, maybe. Let me see. What if I want to put the fuzzy dab, but let's change it. I don't want the fuzzy dab. I want just the pressure. Wonder what that would do. Oh, interesting. So it only flips it if I press a certain kind of, like if I press harder, then it flips it. I feel like I don't really, I don't know. I don't know if I really want the, the mirror. I don't know. I'm a little bit like, not too sure. Drawing angle. Oh, okay. That's why. So if my stylus also rotates, so this is kind of, if I rotate my style, it also changes how it's angling. So I guess that's kind of like the one thing about it that's interesting. I guess this kind of helps make it random, more kind of like unpredictable. I don't know. I guess you guys can change and adjust that as you see fit. I think I'll keep it just because I do like the randomness, but I don't know if I exactly like it the way that it is at the moment. Also, maybe I think I might increase the sizing of just a little bit more. Yeah, I'm gonna increase the sizing just a little bit more. Okay, so we made a few changes, and if you're like, okay, I made some changes, how do I like save it? Well, you simply go to override brush preset. So I made all these changes. I increased the spacing. I think I didn't change any of like the rotation or the mirror. I kept them back to the default, but I did adjust the spacing of it. So if I like it, then I'm just going to overwrite brush preset, and you save it, and it'll keep it. So there we go. Got a new preset. Hello. I'm gonna mispronounce your name, but hopefully you forgive me for it. Studi Chahan. Hello. Hello there. You might know it as the beep test too. Okay. So it is the beep test. Man, I wonder how well I would do if I do the beep test right now. I was like relatively athletic in middle school and high school. I don't work out or do much like sports these days, but like I would say like I do, like I still stay active here and there, but I don't know. I feel like I would die at the beep test now. That became, oh, was it? I did not know that it was a meme. Huh. Could you use this to make clothes texture too for something like wool or cotton? I guess not so useful for smooth materials like latex. Yeah, so for example, I have this, right? But if you wanted like, let's say a clothing kind of texture, maybe you could try out a grid types to get that kind of like wool texture. So I know like some wool texture would be like this maybe. So you could probably just do like just one. It'd be like a heart shape. And then you save this, and then whenever you paint it down, going down, it would just repeat it. And you can change the spacing so that it's not all clumped up, because that's kind of what I did here for the maple brush. So if I show you the maple brush, now when I draw, you notice how it's much more spaced out, whereas beforehand the maple leaves were really bunched up together where you couldn't really see them individually, kind of like how it is here, like it's all kind of bunched up. But now I increased the spacing so you can see it separated. So you can do the same thing here. You can kind of design a kind of knitted kind of texture or pattern, and then adjust the settings like the mirror, maybe turn off the mirror, turn off the rotation, and or maybe keep the rotation. Actually, you'll probably need the rotation, and adjust the spacing so it kind of almost treats it like a pattern, like a stamp pattern. So, you know, unspeech on YouTube. Oh, okay, yeah, go for it. I'm kind of curious as to what this meme is too. Okay, let me see with the new spacing. Okay, so I guess the downside to the spacing is just that it's a bit more, it's a little bit too obvious maybe now with like the shape of it. So maybe I'll turn it back. So the spacing, let's turn it back. Let's go like here. So if you're wondering like, oh, what are you looking at to know what you're adjusting? Remember the upper left corner, I can kind of see how much it's spaced out. So maybe like here is good. We'll try that. Yeah, I think that's pretty good. So I'm just putting in a bit more noise. And then what I wanted actually is to turn this into, let's paint a hedge. Let's paint a hedge real quick. And let me see. Let's paint get an environment in as well. We'll just do like a really quick hedge. Something like that, maybe. Oh, whoops. Had the opacity on. Okay, there we go. Oh, hey, Zipporah. Glad you're able to make it. You have so many saved brushes. Can you show us some of your brushes that you made and explain them for what they are and what you've used them for if you made brushes? Well, so that's kind of what this stream is for. So typically, I actually don't make brushes. I usually just adjust the settings for brushes. But the concept for making brushes is quite straightforward. And what I would also recommend is that what you kind of saw right here, what I did, is that, oh yeah. Also, Fate told me to like swap this up. Let me swap this real quick. Let me put it here. Or is it here? Yeah, here. Yeah, so basically this is something that that I did for this brush, which is that I didn't start completely from like blank, or I didn't start completely new. I actually started with the chalk grainy brush because I like the texture and the effects that it had. And I went into the settings and added, and I just basically, all I did was change the brush tip. So I think the big takeaway is, if you, for example, want a rake brush and you're like, oh, I want a rake brush, and Krita doesn't have a rake brush, you don't have to make a rake brush from scratch. You can kind of, if you like a certain texture that a brush has, like, let's say, the chalk grainy brush, I can click that and then make a rake kind of style of a brush. So we can try that out. I'll show you guys real quickly. Again, it's super simple making a brush. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go grab my chalk brush, go maybe to like the dark color here, just go black, and let's just kind of go like this. 1, 2, 3, just like 3 dots in these weird oblong shapes. Kind of cool. I don't know. Will these do anything? Not really. But let's also add like a few more dots, like here, and over here, and over here. And let's just see what happens. So I'm gonna now turn off my background, save as a PNG, and let's call it something different. Let's call this Lobby Rake Tip, or brush tip. Rakey brush tip. And then I'm gonna go, let's go here, and now I have my chalk grainy brush, the default one, selected, and I'm gonna go to the settings again, and this time I'm gonna import it. So I'm gonna show you again how you can make a new brush tip. So we're gonna click import, gonna click on Blobby Rakey brush tip, and it imported it. Now I just have to go find it like last time. Don't know how they're, honestly, I'm assuming it's by alphabet. So let's see. Oh, here it is. Here's my break. And look at that. It's a little bit bigger. We made the... So if you guys don't remember, when I made the maple brush, look how tiny it was. And I think it had to do with the resolution. So I upped the resolution to 400. And here it is. So the icon's a little bit bigger. So I clicked it, and there it is. Look at that. It's a weird looking brush. Ooh, that is interesting. That is not exactly what I want it to be. Okay, so I want it to kind of no spacing. Let's have it spaced out like that maybe. Let's try it. Interesting. Okay, spacing. Okay, mirror, definitely gonna have to turn off mirror. Ooh, that's a weird rotation. Ooh, that's also very weird. Drawing angle. Yeah. Ooh, interesting. That's such a weird brush. Let's see. Texture, strength. Yeah. Size. And now let's just keep size about the same. Opacity the same. Okay, let's just try it out. Let's see how it looks. Ooh, that is a gnarly looking brush. That's kinda cool. Yeah, that's kinda neat. So there we go, we got a rake brush. Now, what I don't like about it is that it's a little bit too close. So it's a little bit too dense. So what I'm gonna do is I'm actually going to erase these bits here. Don't really need that. And not only that, I'm gonna move this here so we can space out some of these pieces. Also gonna remove that, and let's remove this. We'll keep this one here, but I'm gonna space them out way more. And let's make another one. Let's make a new one. So I'm gonna say Reiki brush tip, and then I'm gonna say 2. Or let's call it wide. I'm gonna do the same thing. Let's just import it. Go to brush tip. Go to import. Let's go to wide. There it is. And let's see if it's better. So it's a little bit better, I'd say. It's kind of neat. Kind of interesting. So there you go. So you can kind of see I turned off, if you're kind of wondering like, okay, what were some settings that you turned off? So on the chalk grainy brush, it has mirroring, and mirroring basically kind of flips the brush up and down, back and forth as you're drawing. So it kind of flips it. I don't really want that. That's kind of annoying. Rotation though is needed, and basically it just kind of matches the angle that your stylus is in, and have it at the drawing angle, which means just like how you're angling your brush. The rotation can be with the pressure, which I don't really want that. So drawing angle is kind of what I want. It's the way I'm kind of moving the brush. And those are really the only things that I needed. Spacing, spacing is kind of like okay. Let me see what happens if I turn off spacing. I guess we don't need spacing either. Opacity, let's make opacity a little bit higher. Don't really like kind of how opaque it is or how light it is, so let's make it a bit higher. Blending mode, nothing. Strength, strength, yeah, I think it's good. Spacing, let's have the spacing there. I think that's a good spacing. Ooh, okay, there. Let's get spacing or the rotation like that. I think that's pretty good. Okay, we're gonna override a brush. We're gonna... Here, I'm gonna use this here. Ooh. And save new brush preset. We're gonna call this Blobby Reiki Brush Tip 2, and then we're gonna load sketchpad image. There we go, and save it, and voila, we have a new brush. Let's go find it. probably in the untagged section. Let me see if I can find it. Where are you? Ah, here you go. Here it is. I'm gonna put it into my favorites. And there we go. We have a new brush. And this is what it looks like. I think it turned out not too bad. It's kind of cool. It's a little... it's a little interesting. Yeah, it's kind of like... Someone said they look like tire marks. They do kind of look like tire marks, yeah. That's kind of neat, though. Yeah, it's kind of cool. Put it in the chat with some explanation. Hey, nice, nice. Yeah, definitely go. I'll check it out later. Okay, this is it. Oh, right. Okay, I want to just really quickly paint maybe like a foliage before we leave. So I'm just gonna put also like a brown, maybe like a dirt kind of ground here. I will have it be like that. Still gonna use like we'll use the maple brush. I think that'll be kind of nice. That'll be kind of neat. To kind of use it in such a way. And then maybe we'll switch back to like the chalk brush. Okay, let's revert the chalk brush back to normal to get this kind of like grainy dirt area here. Actually, let's move everything up just a bit. Cool. And let's just paint. Now we can paint the bush. So we have, let's add in a little bit of light. So let's go here and let's just add in some of that brightness. And I'm using what am I using? I'm using a mask layer so that the leaves, all that kind of, what is it, the intensity or the different shapes of the leaves that I have when I painted the bush, they kind of stay there. So here we go. We have a little kind of like a brush, a bush here where I can kind of keep all the unique brush tips that were there. We can even add in a little bit of like some oranges for that bright sunlight maybe. So I'm just kind of putting it in like this so I can maintain a bit of that brush, like that leaf texture. And I used a clipping group so that I can kind of also maintain the shapes like these over here, how they like peek out a bit. So we can kind of like keep that. Ooh, watercolor. It kind of feels like that. Yeah, it does feel a little bit like a watercolor brush. Glad you're able to make it, get the feels. Yeah, and then let's kind of bring it, let's kind of tone it down a little bit over around here. Let's lower the opacity a bit, maybe like some pieces catch a bit of the light and some don't. That's kind of, I think, what makes a bush feel like a bush. A bush feels like a bush. La bouche. Sounds like French. La bouche feels like la bouche. Let's go for a warmer orange here. Looks very smooth. Oh, thank you. Yeah, and then so we went in with kind of the texture brush, like my maple brush, but now it's a little bit too on the nose that it is a kind of foliage brush. So I'm going back in with my chalk brush and I'm just kind of slowly blending some of those pieces in. So this is not meant to be a foliage kind of painting lesson, but I think with the kind of showing you guys how to use or make a foliage brush, I think it's also super important to teach you guys that to not overly rely on a foliage brush and to still use other brushes to kind of smoothen and blend things in. So like you keep some of the leaf textures, but then it also blurs out and some of it goes away and everything, so it's not always like super obvious. And then we bring in some of these like darker shadow areas, and a bush is basically like a sphere. So you have these areas that are going to just be darker right where it got really light, and you're going to have areas that are just, let's bring in some of those leaf shapes, and then you're going to have areas that are just like darker. So let's paint that in here. And then we can paint like a lighter yellow for the leaves near the bottom, just so that it kind of feels like we have a bit of like that, the dirt is kind of bouncing back up and all that. So I'm using the foliage brush that we made, but I'm also using the chalk brush so to hide some of that like very obvious foliage. So the foliage brushes, if you ever use a foliage brush, they're great for really quickly blocking in noise and texture, but try not to over rely on those kind of elements, because you really want to rely more on kind of manually painting them in, or those brush tips will look a little bit too obvious. And yeah, or those shapes that you use to make the foliage will look a little bit too obvious. And let's see, that's the dirt. Let's paint in this dirt a little bit better. So because it's being hit with sun, let's also have the dirt be really bright. And then the area inside can be much darker. That's why the brush shouldn't be used exclusively. Yeah, exactly. That's very well said, very well put together. And this has always been a rule that's kind of been known by like most people who use digital painting. When my friend first, so I grew up more as a traditional painter, but my friend was always into digital painting ever since I knew him from university. And the one thing he always kind of recommended, or not recommended, but he would always be like, yeah, I over relied on the what was it, the cloud brush too much. So he was always like self-critiquing himself and be like, yeah, I over relied a little bit too much on the cloud brush, a little bit too much. I should have used it a little bit less. And so it's always like kind of like this almost like unspoken rule of like how to use stamp brushes, and that you're meant to really use them sparingly here and there, and use them to really just kind of get in the noise and the texture and the kind of the tiny little nitty-gritty things that are kind of annoying to have to paint. So yeah, here we go. And someone said let's use the maple brush and do something that's not foliage related. So let me see if I can paint this little bit of like a twig sticking out. I'm using my maple brush to paint in this twig that's kind of sticking out over here. I feel like that kind of works. That's kind of cool. But, you know, if you guys do enjoy the stream, be sure to like and subscribe. I hope you guys learned a lot with this brush video. I know that we kind of ran through things a little bit differently today. Didn't exactly kind of, what is it? I didn't exactly draw something in the way that I usually do, and we're kind of tackling a topic that is a little bit more unique to digital art. And also this is how you do these customized brushes on Krita, But trust me, a lot of the settings and the functions and features that you see on Krita here that I used are actually very, very similar to how it is anywhere else. So if you're using kind of like Photoshop or Clip Studio, it's actually very, very similar. So don't feel like, oh wait, Josh only did this on Krita, I can't use it at all. That's absolutely not the case. You can very much use this in any kind of software as well. You just might have to find that it might be called differently, or to access certain things it might just be a little bit different. But yeah, so I'm using the maple brush, and I actually think this is kind of cool. It's a little bit janky, not gonna lie. It doesn't work as well as how I would hope for it to work, but it kind of works in a way. But yeah, not as nice as I thought it would. But yeah, so there we go. Maybe we'll add like a little bit of some like darker dirt pieces over here. Maybe some like cast shadows of like dirt on the ground. And here we go. We used my maple brush to make this little hedge and some branches, and I think it turned out kind of cool. Very, very painterly, very brushy. I definitely can tell that the maple brush is not great for these kind of like twig-like kind of pieces. So here, let's just quickly go in and just clean up the twigs a little bit. These branches, let's just make them a little bit more solid. They're looking almost like pixelated, which is kind of cool, I guess. They look almost like low-res twigs, which is kind of cool. Menus are just formatted differently. Yeah, exactly. So just remember, things just might be called differently on like other platforms, but it's probably going to be the exact same in terms of like how you can customize brushes. So give it a shot, try it out. It's always like super fun making your own brushes, and if you guys do, hope you guys have a lot of fun doing it. Just gonna add a few like twigs and leaves here. Then yeah, here we go. Here's our little brush experimentation. Here, I'll make it really big on here so you can kind of see what it looks like with our maple brush. And then also our tire kind of brush. This is what it looks like. So here, I'll kind of write it down. The maple brush. Maple brush. And here, you know, I'll name it exactly that, the car tire brush. Didn't get a chance to use the car tire brush, but I think it's aptly named. Okay, cool. Well, yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed this one. I think I'll upload the brush tips as well. So if you want to download it and incorporate it into your own brush and try it out and follow along with what I did here, feel free to do so. And if you do anything with the brush tip, I think it'll be really cool to see as well. But yeah, so hopefully you guys enjoyed this one. I definitely had a lot of fun exploring the different brushes. Oh right, before I go, I think it was RMR. I think you asked like, oh, if I ever made my own brushes, and no, this is actually my first time making brushes, at least on Krita. I've actually made brushes before on Clip Studio, so that's why I kind of had a general sense of like how you can approach making brushes, but actually navigating to make brushes on Krita is actually completely new. But as you can kind of see, it's pretty it was pretty straightforward, so, and it was not too hard. It was pretty easy. So you can follow along, kind of do the same approach and steps that I did. And like I said, I would recommend just kind of using a brush that already exists, but just swapping out the brush tip, and you already have like a really good and easy to use kind of texture brush or foliage brush or stamp brush, like for clouds and whatnot. So yeah, I'll upload this image, upload the notes as well as the brush tips so you can try them out yourselves. And yeah, I'm just gonna read off the closing statements and hope you guys have a good weekend. So if you guys are just joining us, well, welcome. Unfortunately, this stream has come to an end, but no worries. The VOD will go up after stream ends and you can rewatch it and you can kind of follow along with how we got to this point. I ran through a lot of different things like what to expect when looking for a brush, how to change the settings of a brush so that you can better refine it to making it kind of closer to exactly how you want it to being the perfect brush that you want, as well as kind of making this a custom brush that uses something completely brand new, and you can make the brush tip yourself and use it to make things like foliages and bushes just like this. But yeah, thank you for joining us. My name is Josh, and like always, I'm one of the instructors here at Wing Canvas. And if this is your first time joining us, we here at Wing Canvas, we are more than just a YouTube channel. We are also an online school of illustration. So if you are curious about leveling up your art skills, definitely check out our website for our class offerings. We have a lot of different instructors and a lot of varying classes. So if you want to check out which one is best suited for you and which fits into your time schedule, definitely check out our website for more information. And if you enjoyed the stream, definitely give us a like and subscribe and ring that notification bell so you know when we go live every week. We go live on Saturdays at 3 p.m. just like today, and Mondays at 12 p.m. Eastern time for both Saturday and Monday. So if you want to attend the next ones, those are the days that we stream. And if you want to support us further, you can always check us out on Patreon, where you can find perks just like emotes, exclusive access to members only chat and critiques, as well as monthly live class recordings. So definitely check us out on Patreon if you want to support us further. And if you want to follow us on all our news and updates and postings, you can check us out on Discord and Instagram. We have like so many people on the Discord community, and everybody's super nice and encouraging and supportive. So if you want to join an awesome art nerd community, definitely check us out on Discord. And we actually have an art challenge going on right now. Actually, we have it going on every month. And this month's art challenge is digital deep dive. So this is kind of perfect for that. So maybe if you get a chance to make your own brush, you can maybe submit it as part of the art challenge. And who knows, we might give you a little quick shout out at the beginning of our stream. We didn't do it today because kind of started a little bit late, but we try to do it at the beginning of every stream. So submit it in. There's already a lot of submissions. You can read a lot of the kind of explanations and stories that some of our submissions have. And if you have any questions, GRN will be more than happy to respond to your questions on the art challenge thread. So yeah, that's kind of it. Let's see what's up next. So I believe Faye is streaming this coming Monday, and she'll be doing digital portrait painting, but this time a male face. So if you missed it, last Monday, Faye did Whoopi Goldberg, I believe. It turned out awesome. Like, that portrait painting is like so good. So I'm so excited to see what kind of new portrait that she's going to be doing. And then on Saturday, June 13th, I'm going to be taking a little bit of a quick break, and because I got a wedding to go to. So it'll be Faye and Sean, and Faye is actually going to interview and talk with our newest instructor on our team, and his name is Sean. And you know what? I will say stay tuned for that stream so you can learn more about him. I will say he's worked on some actual big projects that you might be familiar with, like Plants vs. Zombies. So yeah, if you want to learn and hear what Sean has to say, definitely check out that stream. That's going to be a good one. So since I'm not streaming on Saturday, the next time I'll be back on is Monday, June 15th, where I will be experimenting with layer effects on digital art. So if you want to kind of figure out like how to add and change things up, that's going to be one to tune in for. Cool. Well, hope you guys learned lots and had fun with this one. I know that this one was more kind of technical and a little bit different from the usual stream, but I still hope you guys enjoyed this one and had a lot of fun. And with that being said, have a good weekend, everybody. Stay safe out there. Stay hydrated. My voice is so strained right now. I talk for way too long. But yeah, have a good weekend, everybody. Stay safe. Bye-bye. Have a good weekend.